So here we have the Thunderhawk. I did some black banding here and on the wings here. And what we did is we just applied some varnish and chipping fluid and all that kind of stuff, just same as before. I'm definitely going to go in and probably refine this with some brushed on colors and things like that. And then we did all these metallics, and they are nothing of particular specialness. I mean, you're talking GW colors, start with the dark one, null oil, dry brush, sponge, all that kind of thing. So all up in here, and yeah, and it's going to get more weathering and more interesting stuff down the road. But what we're going to do is some rocks. So this particular board has some outcropping of rocks, and we're actually going to paint them using the methods that are presented in the Imperial Armor Masterclass by Forge World, Horus Heresy. So to get started on this guy, we are going to paint him Skaven Blight Dinge. So I'm going to do that. It's nothing special. We're just literally gonna thin your paints and paint it. See when it's done. Okay, so we painted these the Skaven Blight Dinge, and you can see they're much greener than this, although they're probably a dark enough color that you could probably just get away with leaving it the primer color. Next thing we're gonna do is some sponging, and just use a pair of tweezers, little rubber band action. This is just a sponge from the craft store, but you can use kitchen sponge too. Come over to your paint, get some paint, dab a good amount of it off, and just start sponging it on. Nice patchy pattern. We're gonna build it up with a, show you what you're actually supposed to be looking at. Yep. So sponge on some Mechanicus Standard Gray and see how it looks, and we'll go from there. Okay, that is the Mech Standard Gray sponged on. Went kind of heavier to get it to pop a little bit. Still kind of subtle looking, but we're gonna add some more grays, and that is going to pop it up, punch it up better. A little easier to see on this rock over here. We're pretty much going to go around the board, repeat the process, and we're going to use Dawnstone. So I'll do that up and show you what it looks like in a second. And that's what we're looking like with the Dawnstone down. Starting to look cooler. Next color we're going to do is Administratum Gray. Same thing, sponge it on. It's going to be our kind of last color for this step. And we'll get that going in a second. Okay, so here it is with the Administratum on it. Looking pretty cool, really bright. So to knock that back a bit and unify it, we're gonna just wash everything in good old null oil. See what that looks like in a second. Okay, so this is what it looks like after the null oil wash. Looking definitely much more like a pretty cool rock. We're going to give it a dry brush of Storm Vermin Fur, and in the Imperial Armor book they said to do it in a patchy manner, so I'm going to attempt to do it that way. I may just end up blasting the whole thing, I don't know. I assume I want to, since it is a lighter color, keep it to the spots that are going to have more light on it, so we'll do that and show you how it looks in a second. Okay, so this is after the dry brush of the Storm Vermin Fur, and it really kind of looks like it just softened and blended it up pretty well. It was really close to the original colors. I'm definitely gonna have to see about getting some better lighting for making these videos, but looks good. The next step is Baneblade Brown. I'm assuming, especially since it's definitely very brown, I'm gonna be wanting to try and keep it toward the bottom where it's going to be meeting the hard pan here. So hopefully it looks good, and then we'll probably just try and put some patches in these darker spots, and yeah, so we'll see how it looks in a minute. Okay, so this ended up actually working really well, and definitely if you kind of apply it like the book said, in a patchy manner, it does look like a pretty convincing rock formation. Pretty happy with it. So unfortunately, for the time being, I'm a little stuck on this project because I'm waiting on getting some decals. Once I get the decals on and get those weathered in, I will be able to continue on and finish it out. I'm actually, I think I said it earlier in the video, I don't know, I'll have to rewatch the whole thing, but basically complete the entire Thunderhawk, and then I'm going to come in and do the airbrush for the hard pan here, and I'm actually going to let it overspray onto the hull as a form of pre-dusting. So it should look really, really, really cool when I eventually get there, but I need decals, so kind of stuck. That's what I get for going with the hated Sons of Horus. Should have just done my own Legion of Blood Angels. I would have had decals and been done already, but it's all right. It's gonna look cool. Pretty happy with it. See you later. Hey folks, so I'm back after a pretty solid delay in this project, and I've actually done a decent bit of work. You can see got decals on here. That was actually the big delay. They were out of stock, and I had to hit up a bunch of different people. My buddy Kyle came through for me and got me these. There are a few other spots too, got one on the nose, things like that. So what we did is we stuck those decals on, and then we did some chipping, and some of that was some additional chipping, I should say, metal chipping, and a few other filling in the blanks. And some of these, like this, is actually hand painted chipping through here, but I also did a little bit of sponge chipping up in here and things like that. So the next step that we're going to do is we are going to do a pin wash. And what I got here is some Winsor & Newton, just straight up black. And you can use ivory black, lamp black, whatever. It doesn't really super matter. I actually, for the grungy look, prefer the Winsor & Newton with the higher linseed oil content over like an Aptolung. Just because I think it looks cool, it looks grimier, but I tend to do this very messily, and the reason being is I've kind of, I wouldn't say perfected, but gotten into this habit of doing a sort of pin wash filter in one type of approach, and it's worked really, really, really well for my Blood Angels, and I really like the result. So that's what I'm going to do with this. So we have our mixed paint here, as you can see. It's wash consistency, like you put it here, it bleeds out pretty good. And it would work if I went and carefully tapped it everywhere that I wanted it to, and it definitely does, but I tend to just be a little heavily loaded and a little heavy messy with it, just to have that excess that I need to remove, and then intentionally kind of overflood the surface with the solvent to make it basically a lazy filter, but it works. And so what I'm going to do is go around and get these, I don't even know how many rivets and things done, and then we're gonna let it dry for about probably 45 minutes, an hour. It doesn't really matter with these oils. I mean, the work time is like days. You could let it go for a long time, but I'll probably let it go about 45 minutes. And then I'm gonna come through and clean it up, and show you kind of how that cleanup filter process works. So that's the start of it. See you in a bit. So here we have the oils dried a little bit, and we just want to clean them up and spread them out a little bit to kind of make our lazy filter like I talked about. And you know, it's got a little too much darkness, you just get a little more spirits, clean it up, brush it up, blend it. You know, want to just thin it around these bolts and things and drag it around. And basically a filter, if you're not familiar with, is an oil or enamel that is going to tint the surface. And I got into doing that habit of doing that with a black and brown oil paint filter on my Blood Angels. And like I had said previously, I kind of just apply it sloppily, and as part of the cleanup, just pushed around. The main thing that you want to worry about, I suppose, is when you're doing this is you don't want to end up with tide marks. So like right here, I have not, pushed out onto that yet. If I leave that there, it'll be pretty evident once it's dried. So you do, in this process, pretty much need to push, even if it's very slightly pigmented spirits or whatever you're using to as a thinner. You're going to need to push it across everything, or you're going to end up with tide marks and it won't look very good. So I'm just going to go through and tidy up the model, and I will show you what it looks like when it is all done. So, see you in a bit. So here we have it post pin wash / lazy filter mode. Looking pretty good, pretty grunged up. And our next step here is we're gonna wait patiently a couple days for it to dry out, but not a problem. I got a Deredeo I gotta work on. And then we are going to be finally working on making this gray sand, well, sandy. And hopefully get it finished up here next while and add some cool effects and stuff like that. But yeah, looks good. Magic of oil paints. More cool stuff coming soon. Okay, so here we are, getting ready to paint this open deserty earth area here. And we're going to be using some Steel Legion drab. In the Forge World book, they mix this crazy concoction with a bunch of different stuff. I don't really have time for that, or the patience currently. So I'm just going to rock it with the straight Steel Legion drab, and then we're going to follow it up with some Baneblade brown, and then do some other dry brushing effects on it before we move to weathering powders. But one thing I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to allow overspray to get on the hull because it'll act as pre-dusting. Want to be careful with it, take it slow and all that, but it should be a pretty cool effect. Just like that there. You can see it's got a little rime of dust looking pigment going on there. And we're going to do that both with this, and we're going to do it with the Baneblade brown. And then when we go back with the actual Forge World weathering powders, we'll build it up on the hull a little bit too. There's a couple spots like over here on the wing. You can barely see it in the frame a little bit, but I'm not going to try to airbrush in this because I don't want to make too much of a mess. So some of these smaller little clumpings of rock and dust and grit are going to be just brush painted. I'm going to take my time, and hopefully it'll all look good when it's done. Alright, so for our next trick, we're going to apply that Baneblade brown color, and we're going to work pretty thin and pretty light because we want the majority of the last color to show through. I've already started to work on this mound here. You can see the effect is really slight, but we're going to come back in with Baneblade brown and do some dry brushing once this is done. Kind of reinforce the contrast a bit, and then we still have our weathering powders that we're going to work on. But yeah, essentially you're just going to go around the model doing the same thing as before and let it overspray a little bit, get that pre-dust going on, and that's that. So pick it back up when I'm done. Okay, so dry brushing this. I've already done this section a little bit. It's just Baneblade brown layer. And really just trying to like give a little extra highlight to these rocks, higher spaces in here, and just add a little more contrast to the whole thing. So I'm gonna go around the whole board and give it a solid dry brush. Not too terribly aggressive, but you know, just that slight buildup of color and variation. And then we're going to move on to some matte varnish, which I'm not gonna bother to film that at this point. You should know, basically we're just gonna blast the whole board with matte varnish, nothing special. Then we are going to play around with these weathering powders. I guess the other thing I'm gonna do is obviously paint like these bolters, and over here there's the discarded ammo packs and grenades and stuff like that. But again, nothing special. I'm gonna paint those off camera, and nearing the finish line with this. So I only did matte varnish on the hull here. Did not do matte varnish on the dirt or the rocks or anything like that, because following the recipe that was from the Forge World book, you were to mix this stuff, Forge World dark sand weathering powder, with matte varnish and brush it on. When you brush it on, it looks like that. When it dries, it looks like this, basically. Not sure if I like it. Yeah, it's much more orange than I thought would be. Honestly, like, I feel like you get this exact same effect if you just literally wash the board with like Fugan orange, or yeah, really I think Fugan orange is right about the same color tone. So kind of a weird way of doing it, but I guess, you know, things were different back then. Also notice I colored in the canopy here a little bit, and that's just straight blood for the blood god right over the discolored kind of whatever the hell was under there. Like, I didn't bother to fix it up at all. Just kind of the whole point is like it's crashed and jacked up. I am going to put another layer of gloss varnish over the top of this to try and just even it out to make it a little more shiny. And then once all of this business is dry, which it does take quite a while, I think this took almost 30 minutes to dry out. It's still wet in some spots. I'm going to go back in with that dark sand powder, and I'm just going to apply it as a dry powder. On a lot of my models, I've been applying just straight dry powder, and then I let it just sort of sit in the environment for a couple days, and it really sticks on there pretty good. It doesn't actually come off on your hands too bad. Depends on what it is. I've gotten plenty of soot stains on my hands from the exhaust weathering powder stuff that I've done, but I don't know, it's worth it. Definitely gonna put some soot stains here and here from the, you know, where it got shot down, the explosion, fire damage and stuff like that. And then I'm gonna maybe look at adding fuel spill here. I'd really like to do a fuel spill, but I need to order some wet effects from AK or MIG or something like that. But we'll see. Overall though, this is how it's looking, how it's gonna look, how it's gonna play on, and pretty happy with it. Looks cool. It's gonna look good on a full table, and it's gonna be fun to play on. So this might be the end of the video, may not, I don't know, we'll see. So I decided to go in with dry weathering powder and get a little crazy with it. I tend to do this with almost all my models. It's a little messy, probably not as suited for wargaming models, but I don't give a fuck because I think it looks awesome. So this is just the dark sand that I had mixed and made the wash like the instructions said, but I felt like it needed more, and I really like the way that this looks. I don't set this with anything. I have set it in the past with water and some other stuff, and it dilutes the effect too much, and I like it. I like it like this. I was mildly concerned about running out of weathering powder. especially because it is out of production. I'm sure that there is an equivalent. I haven't found an equivalency chart. If somebody knows of an equivalency chart, please let me know, because I would love to have a replacement for these pigments. I mean, hopefully GW gets their shit together and releases them as a Citadel GW product, like they did with the air paints they discontinued, even though they're not a perfect match, they're pretty close. But yeah, so this little tube here that I do have, barely put a tiny even dent in it, even after doing all of this and doing the wash. And like I said earlier, I think on the next board that I do, I'm probably just going to test out Fugue and Orange or something like that and see if it's a similar effect. And if it is, then I'm just going to skip making a wasteful wash out of production powders, and then just do this dry powder step. Because again, I think it looks cool. Could I do the entire board in it? Yeah, but that would probably be more on the wasteful side. And I like just the variation that I have here, so I'm pretty happy with it. I'm going to go in with some light earth next and do all of this section that's been drug and just some of the other stuff, add a little more variation to it, and then move on to a couple other powders, and then this thing's going to be done. And it's done. So went in and did the medium earth around the rock, as well as some, light earth and medium earth. Just kind of blend that all together. We also did some black soot for the fire damage from the explosion and the, I'm guessing, laser hit, heavy hit there. A little bit there. This is all the ground got tore up. That's all the light earth in there. And I'm pretty happy with it. Only thing, like I said, I might do is if I get some wet effects and stuff, do like a fuel spill, fuel leak down this channel here. I think that would look kind of cool. Add just a little extra effect to it, but that is it. Thanks for watching.